Welcome in as we talk a little Augusta cross country. Season officially begins on Monday, competition season, so there is a lot to go over. We didn't have the traditional parent meeting this year just given the circumstances and the situation. So a lot of the things that I'll probably talk about on this video is some of the things that we might have normally talked about in the parent meeting. Video might be a little bit longer than normal just because of several things to go over. So to backtrack just a little bit, I've not had a video since the Kentucky High School Athletics Association came back out been a couple weeks ago now and said that we are going to move forward with fall sports. And then the governor came out a few days later and said he would not stop that. So, we've known now for a couple weeks, or, we keep hoping that we are going to get to start them off next week. In the meantime, the Kentucky High School Athletics Association put out a pretty detailed guidelines document for each sport. And cross country has a 33-page document and a lot of new rules and a lot of new guidelines for this year. And I want to go over some of those rules and guideline changes that are specifically for this year. You'll notice the starting boxes are going to be 6 feet apart. And it may be that they put all members of the team in a starting box, or it could be they put one athlete in each starting box. So that just will probably depend on the meet and what that meet decides to do. You're going to see that wave starts are recommended. So what wave starts mean is in a varsity race, for example, you may have 100 runners, which is the max number of runners you can have in a race for the first couple weeks of the season right now. You can only start 40 at one time. So you'll start your 40 runners, and then a certain period of time later, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever it may be, you'll start your next 40. So that's a way that they can kind of thin out the crowd. And I guess what they would do is sort of like track, and the way they do track field in heats is they would then combine all of those times from that race, and that's how you would get your results. No items are to be left at the finish line. I know athletes sometimes are accustomed to going to the finish line. They're leaving a hoodie there, they're leaving a water bottle there, but nothing can be left at the start line this year. Athletes must wear a mask up to the start line. So once they get to the start line, they can pull the mask down or hold on to the mask. The rules do specifically state that the mask cannot be dropped or discarded. And I assume that's because after they finish the race and kind of collect themselves, they'll have to put that mask back on, because I'm sure that will be a rule at every venue and every meet that we go to. I know it is at the first one about masks. So, they'll have to hang on to that mask one way or the other, I would say, throughout the race, so they have it again at the end of the race. But again, I want to reiterate, they don't have to wear them while they're running. Right? They'll wear them once they get to the meet, when they're stretching, things like that, they'll have to wear them. And then once they get to the starting box, I believe, is where they can then take that down. There will not be awards ceremonies this year, again, just to prevent people from congregating together. No award ceremonies. Results will not be posted at a meet. I'm sure we all know how people like to gather around the results table. So no results are to be posted at the meet. Both of those are state rules. There is a recommendation that meets not allow tents this year. They suggest allowing tarps, but no tents. Again, I assume that's to prevent people from gathering under a tent. So some meets, may have that rule, so there may be times we don't take a tent this year. And then the other thing is, if you have different divisions, a high school division, maybe a JV division, a middle school division, there has to be extra time between those divisions. I think it's actually an hour. So you're going to see a lot longer meets this year. Used to, we're accustomed to pretty much knowing we're going to be racing in the morning or the late morning, early afternoon at the latest. But that may not be the case. And there will be times where we'll just run everyone varsity, because the time schedule is so spread out. If we did, everyone in their own age level, we would end up being at a race for, 8 hours. So, that's going to affect us some. So those are just a few of the, I would say, the guidelines that you're going to notice, more when you go to a meet. But again, there's 33 pages of those guidelines, so those can be found on the KHSAA website. Moving along to the next event that we have after practice tomorrow, which we practice 3:15 to 4:30. Fall sports pictures tomorrow. We normally have those during the school day, but of course with virtual learning, we could not do that this year. So they are tomorrow from 4 to 6, but cross country's specific time is 5:30. So that gives the athletes, when they finish practice at 4:30, it gives them time to cool off. They may even run home, freshen up a little bit, and then they need to be back by 5:20. So our pictures are supposed to start at 5:30 and need to be back at 5:20 so that I can give them their uniforms. If they do choose to just stay in town or stay around school, we're just going to ask that they stay out of the gym until the 5:20 mark. We're just trying to keep the teams kind of separated right now, not running into each other as much as we can. I have asked athletes to all wear black socks for their pictures, just so we somewhat match there, and no compression tops or no compression bottoms in the picture. So no compression tops, no compression bottoms tomorrow. And just a reminder, if ordering those pictures, then the forms and the money need to be brought to the gym tomorrow during picture day. Next event we have is Saturday morning. We have the very rare weekend practice. I don't know that since I've been here in my 10th year we've ever had a Saturday or a Sunday practice. But I thought given our late start this year, normally we would have already probably raced for 2 weeks and we would have been going to a race tomorrow morning in a normal year. So I thought it would be good to go ahead and kind of simulate a race morning a little bit, have them used to getting up on a Saturday morning, coming in, getting the warm-up in, and actually doing a race. So the schedule said meet at the boat dock, but we're not going to do that. We will meet at the school. We'll probably start in there on Frankfurt Street, and then they'll run all the way down Riverside by the river and out long stretch. And Coach Snap will be out there at the midway point, and they'll turn around and just do the course back. So they're all going to do a 5K in the morning or Saturday morning, just to give them an idea. We haven't ran a 5K yet in practice. We've done a 3K. So this will be the first 5K that we've ran. So just to give them an idea of where they're at on the 5Ks. And that's something I didn't mention on the race guidelines. It's not a hard rule, but the KHSAA has suggested incrementally increasing the distances. So they're actually suggesting for the high school kids to run a 2,500 meter race the first couple weeks. That's less than a 3K, so that's less than 1.87 miles. That's probably about a mile and a half. And then they're suggesting that it increase to 3,500 meters, I think, and then finally increase to 5,000 meters. Again, that's a recommendation. That won't be at every race, but you're going to notice some different race distances maybe than you normally see. High school almost exclusively runs 5Ks, and that will not be the case this year. So moving on, I mentioned the Saturday practice, where we're going to do the practice race. Earlier this week, I sent home a tentative meet schedule. I hesitated. Do I even want to send that home? My guess is there will be changes to that. But based on what we know right now, that gives you at least a pretty good idea of the dates and where we will be on those dates. But again, something to think about. It may not be a typical year where we race in the morning and we're done by 11 or 12. So that could make it harder if you're trying to make those Saturday evening plans or those weekend plans. But I did send it home just to give parents an idea. Also sent home a couple of days ago the team rules and ethics. Those were very similar to what every other year has been. The exception was I did add a section, given what's happening this year, that they would be expected to follow the COVID-19 guidelines. So social distancing, masking, basically anything that a meet or a host school is asking them to do. My expectation is they follow. My expectation is, my requirement is they follow whatever they're being asked to do. So that's been sent home. I think I've got most of those back. Just at today's practice, I sent home uniform rules, and really the most important thing on the uniform rules is I would call them undergarments, but really it's the compression tops if they choose to wear those, or the compression shorts, compression pants. All those need to be the same color when we run to match as a team. So if you choose, or if your athlete chooses to wear compression tops, compression bottoms, those need to be black. All right, so just make sure you have black compression pants, black compression tops. Again, those are optional to wear, and most of the time athletes don't wear those until it gets a little cooler later on in the fall. Other than that, most of the other things on that list, are not real important, or things like there's no restrictions on socks, so they can wear other color socks they want. Of course, there's no shoe restrictions. They can wear spikes or no spikes. So Last thing I want to talk about is another document I sent home today, and it's the newsletter. And I don't know if you can see this, but this doesn't show up very well because I've got a background, but your kids got one today. One of the things that I've always done in an effort to communicate with parents efficiently is to send home a newsletter once every 2 or 3, usually once every 3 to 4 weeks. And typically that will have at least 3 or 4 worths of weeks of meets on there. And it usually has things like, what time is the bus going to leave? What time do I think the bus will be back? What is the estimated race schedule? And what is the address of the race? Sometimes I put where I think we're going to eat if I know the area. So the first one that they got today is a little different, just because it doesn't have quite all that information. A couple reasons. First of all, based on the surveys, everyone is able to get a ride to Mason County on Tuesday and Saturday. So we're not going to take a bus or the Suburban, since everyone's going to be able to get a ride there anyway. I thought it would be easier, given Mason County is close to home, that they, parents or friends be able to give them a ride. I will say that in general, I particularly like going to the meet as a team. I like traveling as a team. A lot of times, because we have fewer than 8 people going, we take the Suburban, but sometimes we take the bus. But regardless, I just like traveling as a team. But again, given the close nature of Mason County, and given that now we have to wear masks on the bus, I thought, well, these first couple meets at least, we'll just go ahead and the parents can take them. We'll let you take them. But I will tell you, I'm almost confidently certain that we will take school transportation to the next 2 meets, which is Round County and Scott County, not in that order. So this will not be an every meet thing by any means, because I want to ride to these meets as a team. But just in these first couple of circumstances, the way it worked out, it just worked out where we really didn't need to. And Mason County is such a short trip anyway, it's not really a big deal. But in addition to all that information I gave you on those meets, on the newsletter, there are going to be probably some other things listed, and that is the guidelines for these meets. And what I mean by that guidelines is Spectator Guidelines. So on this first page, for example, the meet on Tuesday at Mason County, it's going to be a very small meet. They're just inviting 3 or 4 local schools. So it'll probably look more like an old-fashioned race, like your traditional race will. But in terms of, they probably won't do the wave starts or anything like that. But they're still expecting masking and things like that. But Saturday's race will look different. And what I mean by that is they'll use the wave starts that I mentioned, and admission will be handled differently. So for Saturday's race, admission is $5 per spectator, $5 per fan. That's pretty normal. But the difference is athletes can only bring 3 spectators. And here's how they're going to police that. They're going to mail me 3 wristbands for every one of my athletes, which we have 5 athletes. So I'm going to get 15 wristbands. So what that means is parents will have to pay me for their wristband. And when they get to Mason County, the way they get in is they hold up that wristband. There'll be no giving money to Mason County. All right, you'll give the money to me, and I'll have to give that as a group of money to Mason County. So go ahead and be planning on that. I would need the cash. This needs to be cash to me. I would need that by Thursday, September 10th, and I should have the wristbands by that day. So now, what happens if, let's say, a runner doesn't use those 3 wristbands? Well, then we can give those to another athlete. So, if we know someone's parents aren't going to be at a race, that could free up some wristbands, and then we'll offer those to the team. I'll tell the team, I've got an extra wristband. If anyone wants to, purchase that, just let me know. So that's the way that'll be. That's the way that's handled at Mason County, but that could certainly be different at every race. Every race may just say, listen, we're going to let, I don't know how they would do that, but we're only going to let 2 people in per car or something like that. I'm not really sure. But that's the kind of information that's going to be on the newsletters this year. In addition to the times, the meet information probably won't be as many days in advance, as many meets in advance. This first paper, like I said, only has the 2 meets at Mason County. There's going to be some other meet information on there that the schools provide. Some other information that Mason County has provided: masks are required by spectators and coaches at all times. So from the time they get on the property to the time they leave, people are going to be expected to wear a mask. And, they can certainly ask fans to leave if they're not abiding by that rule, since that is, their property. Coaches will not be allowed on the course at Mason County. That has been a recommendation from the state. So we're allowed to go on the spectator area and on the paved roadway there at Mason County. That's where coaches can go. I think spectators have an even little smaller area. They have to stay, regular fans have to stay, I think, between the start and the finish line. So, and that's going to probably look different too. Mason County has had to change their course up some because you can't have kids running into each other now on the course this year. And that would have been a possibility at Mason County, one area coming out of the woods. So I think they've had to adjust their course a little. So we'll see what that looks like on Tuesday. No concessions will be available. So that's just something important to note. And finally, athletes must bring their own water, just like in practice now. These schools are not allowed to have water stations. You're going to see that probably in all the sports. I know that's a rule for volleyball. I think it's a rule for all the sports not to provide water stations. So athletes, again, need to reiterate, bring their own water bottle. And obviously the parents probably need to hold on to that during the race. So that way after the race, the athlete can make their way to their parents in the spectator area and get that water. So I mentioned about the races being different distances. Mason County has elected to do varsity a 3K 1.87 miles. So for these two first races, I'm going to be having all of our kids run varsity. All the kids are going to run all the varsity races at these first two meets. I just didn't think 8th graders who are going to be competing in 5Ks later on this year and who are going to be running in the region, I didn't think it was real beneficial for them to run a middle school 1.25 miles. So, unfortunately, they won't get to compete against their age group, their peers, but the 3K is what they would have normally been running anyway. In a normal year, these two races, if you're running middle school, you're running a 3K. So that's the good thing. It will be easy to compare their times because they are going to be running the same distance. So, so just to note, that is on the newsletter as well, that all of our kids will be running the 3K, the varsity race this Tuesday and this Saturday. And again, that's going to vary from race to race. I'm certainly going to try to get our middle school kids 2 to 3 races where they run middle school. I don't want them to run varsity all year. I want to give them a chance to compete against their age group, their age level. I think that's important. It's important for them mentally to see where they stack up against kids their own age. But like I said, although all of our middle school kids, where they're 8th grade and up, they're going to be competing in the varsity region. So they need to run, several varsity races too to get them ready for that. So I always try to balance the middle school. It's going to be a little harder to do that this year because of this, just because of the way we have a shorter schedule. We have fewer meets this year. And like I said, there could be 6 or 7 hours between the high school varsity race and the middle school race. And that may sometimes mean that, everyone's going to run varsity just because of the schedule. So, but like I said, I will certainly, get them at least 2 or 3 opportunities at minimal to run middle school races. So I don't want middle school parents to get too worried about that, that their kids are going to have to run varsity all year. That is certainly not my plan at all. I think that's going to about do it. We've been having good practices, back to, full time now, no restriction on what we can do at practices, no restriction on how many hours a week we can practice. So, this week coming up, we'll have Labor Day off. We don't practice on Labor Day, but where we have a race on Tuesday, my advice is going to be to athletes, they need to do a long run Sunday, and they need to do a little easy run on Monday, just, a little 25-minute run day before a race. So I'll tell them that, but as parents, please encourage them. If they're supposed to run, I encourage them. If not, make them get out there and do it. So it's just making them better and having them more prepared. That's going to do it for this video. Look forward to seeing everyone out at our races next week. Everybody take care.